On today's Timeline Events True Crime episode, we're going to delve into perhaps one of the biggest cases in South Africa to date, involving two men, one of whom was nicknamed the South African Jeffrey Epstein.
Paul Kennedy. He was a renowned advocate and human rights lawyer who represented several government departments and even led evidence at the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. Him and his co-accused faced over 700 counts of pedophilia crimes. According to court papers, the men targeted teenage boys from across South Africa. Now, this case bears the hallmarks of the Jeffrey Epstein case: child rape, abuse, sex trafficking, and the production of child pornography.
Acting judge and human rights advocate Paul Kennedy was charged with more than 700 charges, including rape, sexual assault, importing and exporting child pornography, attempted murder, creation of child pornography, human trafficking, compelled rape, possession of child pornography, among many other charges. He was given the nickname of South Africa's Jeffrey Epstein, alluding to the nature of the charges and as well as taking advantage of underage children and using them for profit. After Kennedy and Ackerman were charged, they each received a 6,000 rand bail. While on bail and awaiting trial, Paul Kennedy allegedly took his own life.
A well-known attorney, he actually took his own life. And the reason this happened, well, they suspect this happened, was because when the trial started and when this matter was before court, they had to do blood tests. And there was a lot of back and forth with the blood tests. Why must these blood tests be taken? Eventually, the blood tests were taken, and it came out that Paul Kennedy was HIV positive. And one of the young boys that was sexually assaulted also is HIV positive, and soon after that he took his own life. Paul Kennedy took his own life. So it's only Gerhard Ackerman that is before the court, and judgment is expected on Monday.
His middleman, Gerhard Ackerman, was the one responsible for luring the young boys using Facebook as the main tool to recruit them under the guise of helping them make money by giving massages with happy endings. The way he says it makes it even more disgusting because he treats this case as if it's just a normal part of life.
The only thing I did was, when I trained them, I asked them if they are willing to give the client a happy ending, and all of them have said yes. And then I asked them, do you know how to do it? And of course I know how to do it. And basically, there's no training involved in that.
Gerhard Ackerman also admitted that he prefers to work with innocent young boys. He was also granted a 6,000 rand bail by the Johannesburg Magistrates Court in 2021. On condition that he report to the nearest police station on a daily basis. When he failed to make his first court appearance and when the National Prosecution Authority failed to reach him, they immediately alerted the public to be on the lookout for him. He was then caught in Florida when members of the public recognized him at the mall. His bail was then revoked. According to the National Prosecuting Authority, when the police arrived at Ackerman's home, they found he had moved out and sold his movable assets with the intention of moving to Cape Town. You are not going to believe his excuse for these shenanigans. He told the judge that he had to move out because he could no longer afford his rent, and therefore he didn't want to get kicked out of his apartment.
I realized that I couldn't afford my rent at the end of the month, and he would put me out on the street. So I had to make quick arrangements to move before month end. Otherwise I had no place to go. And when Werner said, okay, he can fetch me only that morning because he's off, then I realized, okay, now I have to.
Ackerman and Kennedy would request images and videos from minor children and sometimes would pay them for such images. They made travel arrangements for the children to come to Johannesburg, which advocate and acting Judge Paul Kennedy funded. Kennedy was the one who arranged the clients and schedules of the clients who the children would service daily at his Saxonwell residence and at Ackerman's massage parlor. Advocate Paul Kennedy would also take a certain percentage of the money for himself, that these clients would pay the children for sexual acts. Both Kennedy and Ackerman engaged in sexual acts with the children. Paul Kennedy was a powerful man in the country of South Africa, and it was reported that there were some important people who were aware of his evil deeds. He was the one who provided Gerhard Ackerman with most of the money to transport the children from different locations, including Paul Kennedy's mansion in the suburb of Saxonwell, where he would also sexually assault the boys. Ackerman was responsible for grooming the children to perform sexual acts on Kennedy and his other clients at his massage parlor, which was a front for a child sex ring, and they also used Kennedy's residence at Saxonwell. The police started investigating the matter after one of the boys went to a police officer and told him that he was being coerced to do sexual activities on grown men, and that there were other children at the massage parlor who were being groomed to do the same thing. After Kennedy and Ackerman were charged with more than 740 charges, the investigators found that Kennedy was HIV positive after blood samples were taken for the two culprits.
Similar to the crimes committed by Epstein's right-hand woman Ghislaine Maxwell, the state believes Kennedy's co-accused had boys delivered to his Saxonwell residence where they were groomed to perform sexual acts on him. Also similar to Epstein, the boys were allegedly groomed to perform sexual massages on Kennedy, which the state believes often advanced to acts of rape and sexual assault.
Paul Kennedy was unable to bear the shame and embarrassment after the pair were granted bail in early 2022. Kennedy took his own life.
A well-known attorney, he actually took his own life. And the reason this happened, well, they suspect this happened, was because when the trial started and when this matter was before court, they had to do blood tests. And there was a lot of back and forth with the blood tests. Why must these blood tests be taken? Eventually, the blood tests were taken, and it came out that Paul Kennedy was HIV positive.
During court proceedings, the judge said, Advocate Paul Kennedy played a vital role in this matter, and he was a participant. He financed the transportation for the boys to get to Gerhard Ackerman's house.
The court is duty-bound to say this so that the victims may get closure insofar as the role played by him in this entire dark episode, which I had the total displeasure to live under for 6 weeks. For me, it certainly wasn't a happy ending.
Judge Mohammed also said, while Kennedy's death was a shame, he knew what would happen. He brought shame to himself and the profession he represented.
That he took his life was tragic, but not unexpected. As he brought shame to himself and the profession he represented. As an advocate, he realized that the game was up.
Ackerman used his massage parlor as a sex ring to provide illegal child services to male clients for a fee ranging from 1,000 to 2,000 rands. During the trial, Ackerman had to face more than 700 charges by himself for abusing minor boys between the ages of 11 and 16. He groomed his victims and benefited financially from facilitating their services with clients. He pleaded not guilty to all charges, including rape, human trafficking, distribution of child pornography, and sexual assault. He also faced charges of attempted murder for exposing the youth to a client that he knew was HIV positive. His co-accused, advocate and acting judge Paul Kennedy. Sadly, one of the boys got infected with the HIV, and the parent broke down when she was interviewed, saying that her son is very negatively affected by the virus and that it has also put a strain on her relationship with her son.
Like he said to me the other day, Mom, maybe I kiss you hello and I've got a sore on my lip. And maybe you have one. Now I kiss you and you also get that condition. This torn our family apart.
The evidence against Ackerman included the victims that Ackerman recruited, some from other provinces, and under the false pretense that they would be doing basic massage work and nothing sexual or against their will with adult male clients.
In his evidence in chief, he testified that he was unaware of what happened at Kennedy's place because his golden rule was that there was no intercourse, and where the children consented, they could do so as they were at least 16 years old. This is a blatant lie. As the accused, when one views the exhibit and the album where the SMSs and the conversations between him and Kennedy and his clients take place, it is self-evident that the clients tell him what they want to do with boys, and he promises that he will send them boys.
Pornographic material between Ackerman and Kennedy was found on Ackerman's electronic devices and was revealed in court. In one message to Ackerman, Kennedy was extremely sexual in his description of a victim who the state referred to as G. In his message, Kennedy described the child's private parts, adding that they were great for a 14-year-old.
In this voice note, the accused talks about him sending nudes to a boy in the hope that he'll at some point do the same.
So accused is sending nudes to a boy with the hope that the boy will do the same.
That is correct, my lord. And in this voice note, the accused asks Mr. Kennedy, do you prefer experience or inexperience?
Now, when you're looking at these conversations in this time frame between the accused and Kennedy, do you know what they are talking about? Experienced or inexperienced what?
My lord, it is very clear. Reading the WhatsApps, reading the messages, and then listening to these voice notes, I think it's important for the purpose of the record that all of that is seen as one record. There's a voice note, a typed voice note, and then some responses or some questions would be in voice note form. And it is clear that they're discussing various victims, their physical appearance, what can be done to them, the prices to be paid, and the experiences that goes with it.
Ackerman targeted children from impoverished backgrounds whose families were facing financial difficulties. This was revealed by SAPS clinical psychologist Colonel Kirsten Clark, who testified in the trial of 52-year-old Gerhard Ackerman. The incidents allegedly took place between September 2020 and July 2021. But due to the fact that this was not the first time Ackerman was caught doing such heinous acts to minors, it is likely that these activities started before the alleged dates. Clark also mentioned that most of the children came from what could be described as dysfunctional families, where a father or mother was either remarried or no longer present. The psychologist also said that there was a large number of them who had suffered some kind of abuse, whether it was bullying, physical abuse, mental or emotional, and even psychological abuse. Ackerman maintained that his interactions with the boys were all consensual, and he also told the judge that he trained between 70 to 100 children masseurs.
And
all of the boys said, I'm happy to do a happy. I haven't found one. My lord, I've trained 70 to 100 masseurs that came through my training. And not one of them said they didn't want to do the happy.
Gerhard Ackerman was convicted on more than 700 charges relating to the running of a sex trafficking ring involving young boys. If you ask me, I say people like this deserve the death penalty because these people walk among us. We need the death penalty. The court rejected Ackerman's version of events, in which he claimed that the boys had volunteered their services to be part of a massage service.
Yes, we had several meetings about this, that,
Yes.
that he shouldn't do it.
You had several meetings
And then-
because the only reason you had several meetings, Mr. Ackerman, was because it was an important issue. Otherwise, you wouldn't have worried about it.
Yes.
In your mind, here's a 15-year-old who wants to do happy endings and you know it's against the law. And you tell him, no, you're not going to do it. And he insists, no, I want to do it. And you allow him.
That is correct, my lord. I allowed him.
Yes. So you were quite happy to break the law.
The court said Ackerman had used the boys, knowing that they came from underprivileged backgrounds. He kept shaking his head during court to maintain his innocence as the judge was reading the judgment.
What if it was your son, if I was your son, would you like me to go to prison? I didn't do anything wrong.
You didn't do anything
No.
wrong?
What did I do wrong? Tell me. Tell me. Tell me.
Do you believe you did nothing wrong?
Yes. What did I do wrong? Tell me. You can't tell me.
And if the court finds you guilty?
Then I want another court. Because this judge is... Let me rather not say.
And on a separate case, the convicted pedophile, Ackerman, is expected in court for forcing a young boy to touch his private parts at the Morningside Country Club in Johannesburg in August 2018. Through the testimony by police officer William Chauke, the Alexandra Magistrates Court heard how Ackerman allegedly entered the club during swimming lessons and went into the change room where boys were changing. Ackerman allegedly masturbated in front of the boys. Police officer Chauke said he interviewed the manager and employees who informed him of what happened. He said when the manager confronted Ackerman at Morningside, the white male ran and got into a BMW and drove into the boom gate, breaking the boom gate. Chauke said they managed to track Ackerman down and he was arrested. His cell phones and laptop at the time of the incidents were seized and later returned to the accused after police did not find any material on them. He said that Ackerman agreed that he was at the swimming pool, but he denied the allegations. Gerhard Ackerman's sentencing is expected later this year, and the state prosecution wants him to receive the maximum sentence possible for each of the 738 charges, which include compelled rape, sexual grooming of children, sexual exploitation of children, attempted murder, sexual assault, possession of child pornography, and creation of child pornography. To ensure that no child ever has to fall victim to the convicted rapist, pedophile, and human trafficker, the state prosecutor advocate Valencia Dube started with the testimony of clinical psychologist Colonel Kirsten Clark, who diagnosed Ackerman with a pedophilic disorder and explained it was unlikely that he would ever be rehabilitated. Society needs to be protected from a person like Ackerman, said Advocate Dube, and I could not agree more with it.